I've struggled to grow my shoulders since I first started training 20 years ago. As you can imagine, over the years I've tried everything to get them to grow with pretty mediocre results. But I finally found a select few exercises that are working like a cheat code to give my shoulders that round 3D look. And in this video, we're gonna be going over the best exercise to target the part of your shoulder that contributes to your width, the side delts. So if you've been struggling to get wider and spamming dumbbell lateral raises just isn't working for you, get ready because I'm about to show you exactly what you need to do to start seeing new shoulder gains immediately. So let's get right to it. The best exercise to target your side delts is the line cable lateral raise. And this is where the magic happens. One of the most versatile pieces of gym equipment there is. This thing lets you train every part of your body in ways that just aren't possible by free weights like dumbbells and barbells. Don't have access to one of these at your gym? Switch gyms or sue. So what makes this thing the secret to building huge delts? One word: tension. Actually, two words: constant tension. So when you do a lateral raise to train your side delts, if you do the exercise with a dumbbell, the tension that your side delts experience are gonna be changing throughout the course of the movement. At the bottom of the movement, the dumbbell's pulling your arms straight down because of gravity. But as you drive that dumbbell further and further away from your body, the tension your side delts experience is gonna be increasing, and at the top of the movement, that's where the exercise is most challenging. It makes sense if you've ever done a lateral raise, but why? Physics. The tension that your side delts experience when you have your arms out at your side, we're gonna simplify and call that torque. That's you. And when we're working out to build muscle, we're trying to produce as much of this tension or torque as possible. But what is torque, and why do I keep saying this weird ass word? Torque. Now, if you're like me, you hate math, but unfortunately the laws of physics, they're best described by equations. And in this case, torque equals force times moment arm. And for this exercise, the moment arm is my actual arm and the force is the dumbbell in my hand. So the greater the distance between the thing that's producing force, which is the dumbbell producing force down, and the thing I'm trying to train, which is my shoulder, the greater the amount of torque that's gonna be produced at my shoulder joint. But as you lower the dumbbell back down on your sides, the distance that dumbbell is away from your body becomes less and less until there's absolutely nothing when your arms are back down towards your side. So now you may be able to see why doing a lateral raise with a dumbbell is only producing max force at the top of the movement where you're actually the weakest, and at the bottom where you're the strongest, jack shit. To get around the limitations of using a dumbbell, we can use cable tension. The thing about cables is that unlike free weights that are producing a force only in that direction, cables are always producing a constant amount of force in whatever angle you set them up to be. And one key thing to remember is that when the cable and your arm are at right angles to one another, like in this instance, that's where you're gonna be experiencing the most amount of torque. So now let's take that lateral raise that you were doing with a dumbbell, do it with a cable, and see how much better we can make it. First, we're gonna get a bench because standing up is way less stable. And pro tip, the more stability you can incorporate into your training, the more force your muscles will be able to produce, thus you'll be stronger. Next, get that bench dead center between the two cable attachments and make sure that it's a few feet back. You don't want to be inside of the machine for this. Next, we're going to take the bench up a couple clicks so that the back is at about a 45-degree angle. Set the pulleys a few clicks off the ground, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 feet. Have a seat and you're almost ready to go. Trust me, the setup is worth it. You do have a few choices of what kind of attachments you're going to use. You can use D-grips, which are pretty standard, wrist cuffs, which are my personal favorite, or you could just get nasty and raw dog it by grabbing the balls. Personally, I like to stick with the wrist cuffs because they allow you to more freely rotate your arm, and you'll see why that's important soon enough. Now start by crossing your hands over, left over right or right over left, and lie back and start with your hands in front of you so that the balls are touching. And then with slightly bent elbows, raise your arms up and out as if performing a Y with them. This should put you in what's called the scapular plane, which simply lets your shoulders move how they want and avoid shoulder impingement that can occur when you try and raise your arms up when they're straight out to your side. Working in the scapular plane gives you the greatest range of motion, allowing you to fully work your muscles as best as possible. Now, before when I mentioned the wrist cuffs allowing you to more freely rotate your arms a bit more, here's why that's beneficial and how you can target different parts of the shoulder simply by adjusting the rotation of your arm. For a well-rounded amount of tension equally dispersed through your side delts, keep the palm of your hand facing the cable pulley that you're pulling away from throughout the whole movement. To target more of the front portion of your side delt, rotate your hands slightly outward, which is external rotation, so that you look like you're trying to point your thumbs up. To target more of the rear portion of your side delts, rotate your hands more inward as if you're trying to have your pinkies up as you drive your arms up and outward. All three of these variations are gonna target your side delts to give you that width, so I would just say pick the one that you feel the best and the one that gives you the least amount of joint discomfort. And that's it. That's how you set up and execute the movement. And if you do it right, you should be feeling a constant tension in your delts the entire time. This non-stop time under tension really helps to develop a mind-muscle connection, and I know in the science community right now there's a lot of debate whether or not mind-muscle connection really makes a difference to hypertrophy at all. But I will say, as soon as I started doing this exercise, I could connect to my shoulders, and that's when I saw the growth take off. So you be the judge of that. I got a couple pro tips for you that I think might help you out when you're doing this exercise. If you're finding that the cables are rubbing together too much as you're doing the lateral raise, try reversing the order that you have your hands crossed. If you went left over right, then do right over left and see if that helps. If it doesn't, just pick the version that rubs less. Second, if you're gonna go with the wrist cuff method, put something in your hand that you can squeeze. Like this. When you squeeze something, you activate the muscles in your hand, forearm, and upper arm, which creates something called irradiation. You can think of irradiation like creating guide wires through your arm to help stabilize the shoulder joint, allowing you to lift heavier weights with better control. It makes you stronger. And like I said, you can use fat grips, you can use a D grip that's not attached, or you can just make a fist and flex your arms really hard and that should have a similar effect. If you use D handles, what you'll find is that if you attach them regularly, like this, you'll have to avoid so much of the bottom part of the movement because the balls and the carabiner start running into one another. Attach the carabiner to the rope part of the D handle and then connect it behind the balls rather than the main attachment part of the cable. This should allow you to get more range of motion at the bottom where your side delts are in a bit more of a lengthened position. New research is emerging that's showing that the lengthened portion where your muscles are stretched is proving to grow the most amount of muscle, especially when compared to the shortened or the mid-range positions of a movement. The last couple of things is experiment with different bench heights, different pulley heights, and different distances away from the machine. Everybody's built different, everybody has different limb lengths, so experiment and find what works best for you. If the cables are rubbing on your legs like this, obviously you're gonna have to get your legs out of the way by moving back, or you're gonna have to move the pulleys up. You don't want your shoulder blades jammed into the bench. That can happen when you're laying down. The exercise works best when your shoulder blades can move freely, which is why I like to have my upper back peeled off of the bench, like this. Some people actually say to perform this exercise laying flat on the bench, but to me, this is just creating dysfunction in the scapular-humeral rhythm, which is just a fancy way of saying
you're fucking up your rotation.
So I am sure you're wondering how many sets and how many reps and how many times per week you should be doing this, but it's difficult to give a one-size-fits-all answer because everybody's situation is different. But I can give you some general guidelines. You can go from there and adjust as necessary. Pick a weight that you could do at least 10 at the bare minimum, full range of motion reps. Your rep range should be anywhere from the 10 to 30 rep range, and the weight is gonna be pretty light. So you might have to put the machine at its lightest weight in order to be able to stay in that rep range. Do at least 2 to 3 sets to complete failure with partials. Personally, with lateral raises, I go to failure every set, and that's just when I can't move my arms anymore. Just by doing partials at the end, you're getting a lot more stimulus, so you might not have to do as many sets to get the job done. I would make sure that you're hitting your shoulders at least 2 times a week. And I know a lot of people think that there's a lot of overlap with chest, so I would say either do your shoulders on the same day that you do your chest, or give it a few days break before you go train your chest after you hit your shoulders. Shoulders are a very hard muscle to get sore, and they seem to recover very fast. So training them at a higher frequency per week, higher reps, and lighter weights seems to give the best results. And that's it. I think this is the best side delt exercise you can do because of the stability you get from lying down, the constant tension you get through the entire range of motion from the cables, and the ability to customize your setup to fit your body perfectly. So hopefully now you can go to the gym and feel confident about setting up this exercise in the functional trainer machine, and know that if you incorporate this exercise into your delt training, you will be on your way to having some serious boulder shoulders in no time. In future videos, I'm gonna be going over the best ways to target your front and your rear delts in the functional trainer machine. So make sure you hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you can check out those videos when they drop. And until I see you next time, let's fucking grow.